Hi, everyone. Welcome to Adweek Together. My name is Kelsey Sutton, and I am the streaming editor at Adweek. And I'm so pleased today to be joined by Alison Moore, who is the CEO of the charity organization Comic Relief. Comic Relief organizes and executes the fundraising event Red Nose Day. And Alison, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to get to talk to you.
Thank you, Kelsey. I'm glad to be here today.
Let's start off with a quick introduction, if that's all right with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been with Comic Relief?
Yes. So I am the CEO of Comic Relief. I've been here for 7 months, just in time for the COVID crisis. Well timed on my part. Before that, this is my first time in nonprofit. I had always worked in media companies across the board. So from my last one was at Condé Nast. I was at SoundCloud as Chief Revenue Officer, Daily Candy, which I was GM there for a few years, which was also part of NBC Universal. And then I spent many, many years at HBO, probably the most amount of time, and left there. My last role was running digital at HBO. So I made the switch, I think, this time around to come into nonprofit, really understanding and very much in line with what we're going to discuss today, looking for the idea of purpose. And I felt like I had run the business side of organizations with the purpose of sort of like uplifting or amplifying the voices of creators. So certainly at HBO, certainly at SoundCloud, Daily Candy, NBCU, in the media business, when you're creating that work, you're really, you're supporting like the showrunners and the creators and the people who make the magic of the work. And there's a lot of purpose that comes to that. I started to think as I got a little older, maybe I could apply those same skill sets and in purpose in a different way. And that's what led me to Comic Relief. And I joined in September of last year, and it's been incredible. And uniquely, because of the way Comic Relief is sort of built and what we do and how we kind of focus our work, it's a very interesting role for me.
Yeah, let's talk about that purpose. So can you tell me the purpose of Comic Relief, and can you walk me through how Red Nose Day normally works? I imagine a lot of people who are watching are familiar with seeing the red nose, maybe at a Walgreens, or maybe they've seen the Red Nose Day special, but I would love to hear a little bit about kind of what that has looked like traditionally prior to 2020, when just about everybody's playbook went out the window.
Yeah, totally. So Comic Relief is a nonprofit organization. We've been alive in the US for about 5 years. We were founded by Richard Curtis in the UK in the 80s. And, so anybody that's a British expat knows Comic Relief and Red Nose Day really, really well, because people in the UK grew up with it. So the mission for Comic Relief is to drive positive change through the power of entertainment, and really, frankly, engagement. And the vision is a just world free of poverty. So the way the organization works, our largest expression of that is, of course, Red Nose Day, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a second. But Comic Relief is an interesting fulcrum. We, on one side, build these really engaging consumer-facing programs that, through our corporate partners, and drive and raise money at scale. So we take a really juicy idea and a really interesting idea, and maybe something with levity and fun. That's certainly the case with the Red Nose. We amplify that in the halls of a corporate partner, first and foremost. So Walgreens' articulation of Red Nose Day is very, very much kind of like the feel of a retail environment. Red Nose Day at NBC very much feels like a broadcast network putting that on. And so when you take that together and you amplify that for scale, it raises what are really amazing numbers to then take those dollars. And then we turn around on the other side and we have relationships with multiple different grant partners in the field along certain topic areas. So in Red Nose Day, our focus is children. And we are aligned in keeping children safe, healthy, and educated. That's been our remit for the last five years here. And with that, we partner with companies like Covenant House, Children's Health Fund, Boys and Girls Club of America, that's in the US, and then abroad, Save the Children, the IRC, a multitude of organizations. And we kind of ensure that those dollars that we raise get placed in the organizations that are making the kind of frontline impact need. And so that's the construct of Comic Relief. We did something like that in hand in 2017 around hurricanes domestically. Red Nose Day, we've on 5 years, as I mentioned, $200 million raised over those 5 years in the US, and over almost 25 million children positively impacted through that work. So that's been an incredible just sort of work that's happened here in the US, mainly through our three partners with Walgreens, NBC, and Mars. And we are also supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
When did you start looking at your plan for 2020 and all of the sort of purpose around raising money for children? And when did you start thinking, okay, we're going to have to shift? When did you start to realize that the COVID-19 crisis was, I guess, big enough that you were going to have to really start rethinking the plan for the year?
Yeah. I think February is when we really started to understand the implication. I mean, there's so many implications of this virus obviously from a health crisis and a humanitarian crisis. And, we will talk about that at length, but from a business perspective, thinking about, okay, here we are, we're starting our raise, we're starting our public consumer awareness with retail. Walgreens is obviously, as I mentioned, our deep partner. And we sat around the table together to understand we have a prosthetic nose, something that goes on your nose. We were being told as early as January not to touch our faces, et cetera, et cetera. It just felt like that alone as a kind of tool to raise felt a little out of place with something like COVID. And then the entire shift of, the stay at home and the quarantining and just like the retraction of the consumer population to stay at home, radically affected what retail experiences were going to look like. So we sat with Walgreens, and I would say in 3 or 4 weeks came up with the idea of, okay, digital donations, unlocking a digital nose. What does that digital nose experience look like? How does that kind of come to life, leveraging social amplification? So you have digital filters, and I can walk through that process, that will allow you to basically unlock a digital nose as opposed to purchasing a digital nose. And that happened within the course of 4 weeks. So there was change about how we communicated and I would say distributed the nose. And we did that in very deep partnership with Walgreens. And I have to say they're pretty incredible, rolling up the sleeves and figuring out a new way to pivot really quickly. The second part of it was trying to change our messaging and understanding that while we, Red Nose Day, and not changing our messaging because we're doing something different, the truth is all of our grantee partners they are supporting COVID immediately upon everything happening. So even when you talk to Kevin Ryan at Covenant House and you hear about, he's got all these locations that sort of help trafficked and disenfranchised youth kind of come and find a place for purpose and shelter and food and everything. His organization is taking the office space and the kind of closets and turning them into quarantine sections to kind of keep kids healthy during this time. They are now supporting, I think he's 40% more meal service than they used to because nobody can find other places to eat. So their entire businesses have been reframed with COVID. And so from our perspective, our messaging to consumers and our messaging vis-a-vis the partners, while we do keep children safe, healthy, and educated, that is around food, housing, and medicine more than ever with COVID. on board now. And I think we sort of changed our marketing. We sort of changed the way we went to market. We've been really talking about the stories of impact, which are just the amazing work that our grantee partners are doing every day in the field and with kids on the ground. And it's awe-inspiring, but it's daunting because it's a lot. And there's a lot of need out there that needs to be supported.
Yeah, I'd love to quickly take a look at some of the creative that you pulled together kind of around this. So I'm going to ask Nick, who's our producer, to cut away to that. And then we can talk a little bit about how that all came together to really, I guess, address this moment and address the need that you just talked about.
Great.
Zippity-doo, I'm a red-nosed girl and I like... Oh, I'm sorry. Hey there. It's Red here. How's everyone doing out there? I just wanted to let you know that I'm doing my part to stay safe at home, which means, thanks to COVID-19, you won't be seeing me at Walgreens this year. I know, I'm bummed too. But listen, don't worry, you can still donate. In fact, there are still plenty of ways you can help the children who need us now more than ever. And you literally don't have to leave your house to do it. I mean, how about that? You and your sweatpants can thank me. Just $1 can provide nutritious food for a child. $5 pays for crucial medical supplies for a doctor visit. And $35 provides a teen with a safe place to sleep. It doesn't take a lot to make a huge difference in these children's lives, so please give what you can. Go to noseson.com right now and donate today. And with every donation, you'll unlock a digital version of moi. That's right. Look at that. You're welcome. Gorgeous. COVID-19 may be keeping us apart, but we can still act together to change and save the lives of children, giving them the basic necessities they so desperately need, like food, medicine, and shelter. So I want to say thank you from me, but more importantly, thank you on behalf of the millions of children your generous donations will help have a better tomorrow. Together, we can change the story for children.
How long did it take for you to pull this together? And can you walk me through how you thought about this creative process and what it looked like in production and execution, particularly as people were told to stay home? I mean, it's hard to pull one of these together remotely. So can you walk me through what that looked like?
Yeah, so I will say, an amazing creative team who really understands clearly our brand, our consumers, and the sort of pent up, I would say, anticipation for Red Nose Day and the nose and what that symbolizes. I mean, it has taken on a larger than life type thing. So the idea of coming into an animatronic, kind of nose and having her name is Red, having her come in and speak and engage with the audience in that way and make it accessible both to, I would say, communicate the fact that we're not in Walgreens stores, but with our partnership with Walgreens, we have a digital nose, communicate that to the people who will be buying, who are parents, but also make it accessible and understandable to kids, to be able to share that and have that be something that explains in not so crazy terms that we are staying at home, but it's okay. And here's what we do next. I think that was, it was just a really sweet piece that felt like the right way to convey what is a big impact to us from an organization perspective, but really, I think we have a really interesting solution, as you can see here with the with the red noses, and it's great, it's cute, and really kind of reminding people that we need the awareness, we need the help to kind of donate today, unlock the digital nose, push it out on your social handles, get your friends and family to participate, galvanize the population, because instead of being able to go into 8,000 retail stores and see noses and buy them that way, and then kind of have the concentric impact there, we need the public's help this year more than ever to spread the word. And I think that video does that, or helps kind of communicate that.
What was one of the most challenging parts of sort of reconfiguring this tentpole event to digital? What were some of the challenges presented just by actually making this happen in a digital space, and actually making it, I guess, work from end to end? And then as you think about that, what sort of, as you sort of work through those challenges, what do you think will be some of the more lasting impacts of this, I guess, on your organization as you think about some of the strategies that you've employed to make this happen this year? What might stick around for subsequent years?
Yeah. I think that, anytime you're kind of pivoting to from a physical experience, even if you have kind of omnichannel tactics that are out there, the whole core of that experience was around retail. And so all of a sudden it just became about digital. And so anytime that you have that sort of digital a commerce transaction, you need to sort of think about that whole end-to-end chain and how you set that up, and making sure that we have attribution and unlocking a donation that's tied to where somebody comes in, from the Walgreens store, and then unlocking that digital nose and making sure that experience feels seamless and yet I would say connected between Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook. So all of that was work that was articulated and ideated within the course of 4 weeks, which I think the team did a really great job, to be honest. So that was pretty material change there. On the night of TV for NBC. So we kick off Red Nose Day in April. It runs all through April and May. The actual Red Nose Day is May 21st, which is Thursday. And that has always been the night of TV on NBC. It's a 3-hour special. Luckily we had Celebrity Escape Room, which is our kickoff show, in the can. We had shot it in January. And this is this amazing, it's exactly what it sounds like, Celebrity Escape Room. So if you've done any of those yourself, you know how kind of crazy those things are. This has Jack Black, Ben Stiller, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, and Adam Scott, all kind of under duress, trying to get their ways out of certain rooms, escape rooms, and all to raise money for Red Nose Day. They came in. It was an amazing thing that they did that. It's a really exciting show. I can't wait for everyone to see it, actually. It's funny. And then we have a 2-hour special that follows that with musicians and comedy pieces and video to remind people, of what's happening right now with COVID, but also with Red Nose Day, and to drive awareness and just to kind of come together. It's a moment to come together. And now we're shooting that show with people, celebrities in different locations and probably some on iPhones and some. So it's just the how we're doing it is vastly different than we've done before. But I think the mission of what the show is, just like what the mission of, selling those noses is the same. The how is vastly different. And I think has been a lot. But I think that means that, to your point about the organization, we're going to be a lot more nimble coming out of this. I mean, if I can be like, glass half full person, which is not always my bent, is to figure out, all right, look, we've got some amazing capabilities. We've turned on a dime. I think from a digital perspective, we need to be facile in this business too. We need to be able to drive donation. And really, if I borrow a page from my direct to consumer work and my digital work too, we need to be able to run the funnel and figure out how we kind of push out as much sort of ways to grab consumers and spark that sort of idea of getting people to give and the reason to give, and providing a very easy transaction for them to do that, seamless, and kind of coming through that process very easily. It's not unlike when you're trying to engage a mass population, either come and watch something on a digital streaming platform or engage a population to come in and buy something. I mean, it's the same sort of mindset. And I think that's a good mindset for us to have at the organization on the go forward. And I certainly know that will be beneficial for us in our partnerships with Walgreens and NBC and every other partners that we bring on board. I think it's just an evolved skill set. So in that way, it's a lot of work, but it'll end up in a good way.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, I think right now there are a lot of brands, a lot of organizations thinking about impact and giving back and getting involved in one way or another to sort of address this crisis that we find ourselves in. And I wonder, what do you think are some mistakes that brands make when trying to get involved in that space? What do you think is the right approach? And particularly when you think about comic relief, you think about balancing the messaging of levity and the red nose, which is kind of a silly and fun sort of image, with a very serious, issue that you're trying to alleviate, right? Which is trying to address and help children in sort of all of these different ways, housing and food. And so I wonder how you think about the messaging around that, where you think brands have to pay the most attention when they talk about kind of getting involved. And if they're thinking in a moment like this, I want to be able to give back. I want to do something, at a corporate level that is, that's giving back.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to thread the needle pretty carefully, but I think it's a really exciting time for brands right now. Like the demand for business and brands to support public good and to be there when, and frankly, there's just such a loss in trust and connection with institutions, that brands and businesses have this enormous opportunity to fill that gap. And I think when you look at what happened with the Business Roundtable and the 180 companies that came together to sort of pledge their understanding of their responsibility and purpose, even before COVID hit, really unlocked this new sort of mindset that companies have. And I think with CMOs, I think this is a very interesting and engaging time for them to start thinking about, okay, I have a product, I have an experience, I have a consumer base that is demanding purpose and authenticity and just and transparency, frankly. And when you think about building, I think a lot of CMOs, and look, I look at this as being a former person on the other side of the table that understood, as I mentioned earlier, the reason that got me up every day to work in marketing and digital and everything that I'd done in my past was around the sense of purpose. So when you can apply that sense of purpose to your product that you're actually marketing, I think that's a really exciting time and a new way for marketers to think and understand, can I match my brand promise? Can I with my consumer base? And is it something that they're aligned with? Does it feel natural and organic to what we do, what we make, where we show up, the kind of partnerships that we have, does it feel aligned with the kind of external partnerships we have? I think in many ways, and I can see this very clearly from where I sit now, the CMOs need to start talking a little bit more to the people in CSR, corporate social responsibility, and learn from each other. Because now it's no longer the companies just saying, we're going to donate X, Y, and Z to A, B, and C initiative over here, and here's our annual report that shows that we did this, right? There's now a connectedness to the consumer-facing brand or product aligned with what those issues might be. And I think that's, pick your issues wisely, make sure it resonates with your audience. I think I think CMOs and businesses need a bit of a Sherpa, frankly, to make sure that the funds raised get kind of placed in the places that actually do the work, and not the places that are maybe less, what's the right word, accountable to those dollars and where they're spent. And I feel like from our side at Comic Relief, that's the thing I can see really easily is I have a grants team who is extremely close to the ground and knows that when a grant is requested for a certain amount of work, they are the ones following up 6 months later, a year later to say, hey, how'd those dollars get spent? And, what more do you need? And understanding that, yes, that dollar actually did touch an initiative that was around a child, And so anyway, that accountability and that kind of thing, I think that's the sorts of things that CMOs need to just kind of keep in their field of reference, because mistakes can happen, And I think right now, even with the well-intended, mistakes can happen, which is, everyone wants to communicate, helping out during COVID. In some ways, you want to make sure that your messaging, your language, your creative endeavors, while they may feel empathic and towards kindness, you want to make sure that that's not just the messaging, it's also the action, the actions that your organization is taking to kind of help, whether it's your own employee base and that kind of thing, or and this is where I think it's going even more so. It's not just. It is good that companies are helping their own employees. I think that's an amazing thing, and communicating and talking about that. But in some ways, the pressure is on now because of the responsibility that people have placed in the hands of businesses. That it's also for the public good. What else? It's good that that's happening with your own house, frankly. But what more can you do to kind of help the just amazing crisis that's happening here in the public? And people will be looking more and more to brands to help out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Alison, thank you so much for taking the time to join
Thank
us
you.
today on Adweek Together. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much for sharing all that you did about Red Nose Day. I'll have to take my phone out and
Noseson.com.
download the digital nose. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. Stay
Thank you,
safe and
Kelsey.
healthy. And for everyone who tuned in, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to come back here tomorrow at noon, where we will have another episode of Adweek Together for you to tune into. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.